Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the counter. These pieces start at $50,000. The voice sliced through the soft hum of conversation inside Benson & Co., one of New York's most exclusive jewelry boutiques. The air smelled of polished marble and perfume. Every reflection in the glass cases shimmered like pride. Dr. Naomi Carter, 41, stood quietly in front of a vintage Cartier Panther collection, her eyes tracing the craftsmanship. She was calm, poised, and beautifully understated in a navy blue blazer and pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. The salesman, Evan Brooks, was 28, sharply dressed and full of the smug confidence of someone who believed he could judge wealth by appearance. "These aren't the kind of pieces most people just browse," he said. "We keep more affordable options downstairs." A few heads turned. A young woman near the counter, her phone mounted on a small ring light, began whispering to her followers. "Oh my God, you guys, this is happening right now." Naomi didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed on the bracelet. "I'm aware of what I'm looking at," she said softly. Evan folded his arms. "Good. Then you understand why I'm asking you to step back." The live stream viewer count on the girl's phone ticked upward. 300, 700, 200. A silence formed, thin and sharp. In that moment, the world around Naomi seemed to shrink to the size of that jewelry case. It wasn't about money. It wasn't even about the bracelet. It was about something far more familiar, the instant judgment that comes before truth ever gets a chance to speak. She took a slow breath. "I'm looking for something special for my mother's birthday," she said. That piece caught my eye. "That one?" Evan asked, his smirk widening. "That's the 1926 Panther bracelet. 82,000, before tax. Are you sure you're in the right place?" The tension thickened. The camera phone caught everything. The clerk's smirk, Naomi's steady calm, the quiet disapproval spreading through the store. A comment flashed across the live stream. "Why? Is he talking to her like that?" Another followed. "Someone record this. This is wild." Naomi's phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. "Board meeting moved to 4. Car waiting outside." She glanced at her watch. It was 3:15. Evan was still talking, his tone smug. "We've had some incidents lately, so if you're not planning to make a purchase, I'll have to ask you to move aside." A man in a black suit, store security, appeared near the exit. The girl with the ring light whispered to her viewers, "Oh wow, they're calling security." Her viewer count jumped past 2,000. Naomi didn't raise her voice. "I'll only be a moment," she said. Evan stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to make it sting. "You'd be more comfortable downstairs, ma'am. We have a lovely selection of crystal jewelry." The words hit harder than he expected, not because they were loud, but because they were small. Condescending, familiar. People nearby were starting to whisper. The live stream had become its own crowd, a digital courtroom forming in real time. "Excuse me," Naomi said calmly. "Could I please see your manager?" Evan chuckled under his breath. "Our manager doesn't meet with walk-ins." "Random walk-ins," he added, almost as an afterthought. The ring light girl gasped. Did he just say that? The air grew heavier. Naomi's face remained composed, but her mind was alive with thoughts, not of anger, but of history. How many times had her mother, her grandmother, faced moments just like this? Moments when dignity had to fight to be seen. Her phone buzzed again. A new message. Meeting with Benson's corporate office confirmed for Monday. Press release scheduled. Naomi's lips curved into the smallest smile. "You're certain the manager isn't available?" Evan smirked. "Positive. Even for urgent business? Especially for that." Naomi tilted her head slightly. What kind of urgent business would make a difference? He didn't answer, but before he could dismiss her again, another voice broke through the tension. "Everything all right here?" It was Sophie, the assistant manager. Her tone was polite, but her eyes were worried. She'd seen this kind of exchange before. Evan straightened. "Just explaining store policy," he said. "We have to be careful who we let handle our high-value merchandise." Sophie hesitated. Her instincts told her this wasn't about policy at all. The crowd's attention had shifted entirely now. Phones were out, cameras rolling, every second becoming evidence. Naomi's phone buzzed one more time. This time, the message came from someone very important. Looking forward to our Monday announcement. The partnership will make history. She looked up from her phone. Her expression was calm, but her eyes had sharpened. Are you absolutely sure, she asked, that Mr. Benson is unavailable? Evan crossed his arms again. Completely sure. Why? You planning to buy the place? Naomi smiled. Something like that. The crowd erupted in whispers. And as the live stream jumped past 10,000 viewers, the quiet question hung in the air like a spark, waiting to ignite the storm. Evan blinked, uncertain if he had heard her right. The confidence in Naomi's tone unsettled him. Before he could respond, the store doors opened again, and a stream of cool air swept in from Fifth Avenue. A few more customers wandered inside, drawn not by the jewelry but by the growing tension they could feel from the entrance. The live streamer whispered, "She really said that. I think she just threatened to buy the store." Her viewers flooded the chat with disbelief. "No way, this is getting crazy. Don't stop filming." Naomi turned her gaze back to the panther bracelet. "Could you please bring this one out of the case?" she asked. Evan crossed his arms tighter. "That won't be possible without verification. We require ID for anyone viewing pieces over 25,000. Naomi nodded once, calm as ever. "Then let's verify." She reached into her bag and handed over her driver's license. Evan studied it longer than necessary, his brow furrowing as he read the name aloud. "Dr. Naomi Carter." His voice carried a faint edge of disbelief. "Doctor of what?" "Business," she said. He smirked. "Of course. And what kind of business is that?" Before Naomi could answer, Sophie stepped closer. "Evan, maybe I should handle this." "No," he interrupted, waving her off. "It's fine. I just want to make sure everything's legitimate." Naomi's phone buzzed again and she glanced at it briefly. Another message from her assistant. "Driver will wait until 5. Press confirmed at Hilton Monday." Evan leaned in, his cologne strong. "I'm just doing my job. We get a lot of people who say they're doctors or executives. Usually they walk out when they see the total." Naomi tilted her head. "Do you assume that before or after you look at them?" Her question made Sophie glance sharply in Evan's direction. But Evan only chuckled, his nerves feeding his arrogance. "You wouldn't believe how many people try to bluff their way through luxury stores. We call them dream shoppers." The ring light girl whispered, "Oh my God." He just called her a dream shopper. "My chat is exploding." Naomi smiled faintly. "And what do you call it when someone mistakes confidence for pretense?" He didn't answer. Then, without raising her voice, Naomi said, "I'd like to speak with Mr. Benson." Evan exhaled dramatically. "Ma'am, Mr. Benson doesn't meet with random visitors. He's the owner of this brand." "Then he should probably know what's happening in his store," she said softly. Her words spread through the room like a quiet alarm. Even the customers who had been pretending to browse now stood completely still. Evan's jaw tightened. "If you continue to disrupt the store, I'll have to ask you to leave." Naomi reached into her purse and took out her phone. She tapped the record button and said clearly, "For the record, my name is Dr. Naomi Carter. It's 3:43 p.m. on Saturday, November 9th, and I am at Benson & Co.'s Jewelry on Fifth Avenue, attempting to make a purchase." Evan snapped, "You can't record here." A woman near the entrance spoke up. "Actually, she can. It's a public accommodation. She has the right to document mistreatment." The crowd murmured in agreement. Several people raised their phones, filming from every angle. The ring light girl whispered into her mic, "We're at 15,000 viewers. This is going viral right now." Naomi kept her phone steady. "So, Evan," she said, "are you certain Mr. Benson doesn't take unscheduled calls?" He laughed nervously. "What kind of urgent business could you possibly have with him?" Before she could respond, another voice spoke from the back. Sophie again, quiet but insistent. "Evan, maybe we should check with him." "Just in case." Evan glared at her. "He's in his Hamptons estate this weekend. He doesn't want to be bothered." Naomi glanced down at her phone. Another text arrived, this time from R. Benson himself. "Just saw the headlines coming in. Call me immediately." Her expression didn't change. She looked up and said simply, "Would you like to confirm that?" Evan rolled his eyes. "Anyone can fake a contact name. Sure, call your friend." She pressed the screen. The call connected almost instantly. "Naomi?" said a voice-over speaker. It was deep, controlled, and unmistakably real.
What on earth is happening in my Fifth Avenue store?
Every sound in the boutique vanished. The soft background music faded to silence. Even the ring light girl stopped speaking. Naomi met Evan's frozen stare. "I was just told you were unavailable," she said.
Unavailable?
The voice on the phone was sharp now. "Put him on." Evan's throat went dry. "Sir, Now." He took the phone with a trembling hand. "Mr. Benson, sir, this is all a misunderstanding." Even from across the room, they could hear the roar of the voice on the other end. Words like liability, embarrassment, and termination sliced through the silence. Evan's face turned gray. His hand shook as he handed the phone back. Naomi accepted it gently. "Robert, I'm here," she said. "I'm on my way," he replied. "Don't leave." The line went dead. The room exhaled all at once. Someone whispered, "Did that really just happen?" Naomi turned back to the display and finally smiled. "Now," she said, "shall we take another look at that bracelet?" Evan didn't answer. He could barely stand. The live stream count crossed 20,000. The story had already escaped the walls of the store. News bloggers were tweeting. Comment sections were exploding. And outside, in the distance, the sound of helicopter blades began to echo faintly above the city. The storm was only beginning. The sound grew louder, steady, rhythmic, like thunder in the sky. Everyone inside Benson & Co. could hear it now. A few customers stepped closer to the windows, pointing upward. Someone whispered, "Is that a helicopter?" Evan stood motionless behind the counter, pale and sweating. Sophie watched him with quiet concern, unsure whether to comfort him or step away. Naomi stood still, her phone resting lightly in her hand. The calm on her face didn't match the electricity in the air around her. Her phone buzzed again. A notification popped up from multiple news apps. Breaking. Viral video shows luxury store confrontation in Manhattan. Another alert followed seconds later. Helicopter reportedly en route to Benson and Cumber headquarters. The ring light girl, whose name was Leah, was still live streaming, her voice trembling with excitement. "Okay, guys, I think the owner's helicopter is here. This is officially insane. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere." Outside, camera flashes began to scatter across the street as pedestrians noticed the commotion. Within minutes, the boutique had become the center of the city's attention. Evan finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "This can't be happening. He's not really coming here." He just wouldn't." Naomi looked at him. "Why wouldn't he?" Evan turned to her, flustered. Because people like him don't just drop everything for—" He caught himself but couldn't finish the sentence. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "For what, Evan?" The question hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. Before he could answer, Sophie stepped in quietly. "We should prepare for Mr. Benson's arrival." Evan shook his head. No, this isn't happening." She must have faked the call. He wouldn't come all the way from the Hamptons for this. Naomi glanced down at her phone again, scrolling to a text message now visible on the screen. "Landing in 10 minutes. Keep the situation under control." She held the phone up for him to see. "Still think it's fake?" His eyes widened. The color drained from his face completely. I just assumed," Naomi said gently. "You assumed." Leah's live stream ticked past 30,000 viewers. The comments came faster than she could read. "He's losing it. This woman's incredible. Wait till the owner sees this." Naomi's tone softened, but it carried an unmistakable edge. "Tell me, Evan, when you looked at me, what exactly did you see?" Evan swallowed hard. "I don't know. You seemed very sure a moment ago. I just thought that I didn't belong here." She finished for him. He looked down at the floor, saying nothing. Naomi nodded slightly. "That's the problem with assumptions. They feel like facts until the truth shows up." Sophie exhaled slowly. "Naomi, I'm so sorry. He shouldn't have—" Naomi stopped her with a glance. "It's all right, Sophie. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I just wanted to buy a bracelet," the crowd murmured softly. A few people smiled, others shook their heads in disbelief. Then Leah gasped. "Oh my God. The helicopter's landing." Everyone turned toward the large glass windows at the front of the store. Just beyond the trees lining Fifth Avenue, a sleek black helicopter descended onto the street, guided by city officers who had rushed to block off traffic. Naomi didn't move. She stood tall, her hands folded in front of her, serene and certain. Moments later, the front doors swung open. A gust of wind followed Robert Benson, the 60-year-old owner of the luxury brand. His gray hair was swept back, his suit immaculate despite the rush. Two men in dark coats followed him. Security, silent and watchful. The entire store froze. Even the background music had stopped. Robert scanned the room once, his eyes sharp. "Everyone out," he said quietly. "Except Dr. Carter, Mr. Brooks, and Ms. Hayes." Sophie, Ms. Hayes, nodded and gestured for the remaining customers to exit. Leah's live stream continued, the viewer count exploding past 50,000 before security gently escorted her outside. In less than a minute, the store was nearly empty. Robert turned toward Evan. "Explain." Evan's lips parted, but no sound came out. He tried again, fumbling. "Sir, I was just following policy." She didn't. Robert raised a hand. "Stop." The quiet was suffocating. Robert's gaze shifted to Naomi. "Dr. Carter, my apologies. I can't undo what you've experienced, but I can assure you this will be addressed immediately." Naomi inclined her head. "I appreciate that." Robert turned back to Evan. "Do you know who Dr. Carter is?" Evan shook his head weakly. "She's not just one of our top investors," Robert said slowly. "Her firm owns 17% of this company. That makes her by definition one of my bosses." Sophie gasped softly. Evan's knees nearly gave out. That can't be right." Robert's voice was calm but hard. "Her company manages over $2 billion in assets. And today you decided to accuse her of trespassing." The silence was unbearable. The hum of the helicopter blades outside was fading, but the echo of the moment filled every inch of space. Naomi spoke gently. "He didn't just accuse me, Mr. Benson. He assumed I was less than what I am. That assumption doesn't come from policy. It comes from perception." Robert nodded. "I understand." He looked at Evan again. "And you, do you understand?" Evan's voice cracked. I just thought." "That's the problem," Robert said. "You thought, but you didn't see." Evan's eyes welled with tears. "Please, sir, I didn't know." Naomi's tone was steady. "That's what makes it dangerous." Outside, flashes from the gathered press flickered through the windows. The world had turned its eyes on Benson & Co. Robert's side, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. "We're moving this discussion upstairs," no one argued. The three of them walked silently toward the private elevator. As the doors closed behind them, Naomi's reflection caught Evan's in the mirrored wall. For the first time, he looked smaller than the suit he wore. He whispered almost to himself, "I ruined everything." Naomi didn't answer. She simply looked forward as the elevator rose, the faint hum of the machinery mixing with the pounding of his heart. When the doors opened, sunlight spilled across a vast office lined with glass and gold, and what happened next would change not only their lives but the entire company's future. Robert walked across the office without a word, the floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a living painting. The sound of distant sirens drifted upward from the streets below, blending with the muted hum of the helicopter that had just landed. He stopped at the edge of his massive mahogany desk, turned slowly and looked at Evan. "Sit." Evan obeyed without question, his hands trembling as he lowered himself into one of the leather chairs. Sophie stood beside him, arms folded, silent but watchful. Naomi remained standing, her calm presence commanding the room. Robert leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "You've embarrassed this company in front of the entire world. Do you have any idea what this will cost us?" Evan swallowed hard. "Sir, I didn't mean—" "Stop saying you didn't mean to," Robert interrupted. "You made choices. You saw a woman who didn't fit your idea of wealth, and you chose arrogance over respect." Evan's throat tightened. "I thought I was protecting the store." Robert's tone softened, but only slightly. "Protecting it from what? From a paying customer? From one of our own shareholders?" Naomi finally spoke. "He wasn't protecting the store. He was protecting his assumptions." The words settled heavily in the air. Robert glanced at her. "You're right." Then turning back to Evan, he said, "Tell me exactly what went through your mind when she walked in." Evan hesitated, then whispered, "I thought she didn't belong here." "Why?" "I don't know," he said, voice breaking. "She just didn't look like the usual clients." "And what do those clients look like?" Robert asked. Evan's face crumpled. "Old money. Certain clothes. Certain accents. I thought I knew. Naomi crossed the room and stood near the window looking out at the skyline. That's how bias works. It hides inside our certainty. Robert studied her expression for a moment. What would you like me to do, Naomi? She turned slowly. That depends on whether you want to protect your image or change your culture. Sophie glanced at her boss. Robert didn't respond right away. He looked down at his phone. Notifications pouring in, headlines flashing across the screen. Benson & Co. accused of discrimination. Luxury store scandal goes viral. Calls for boycott. He exhaled heavily. We're trending worldwide, he muttered. Naomi nodded. Then you have everyone's attention. The question is what you'll do with it. Evan buried his face in his hands. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't fire me. Robert's expression was unreadable. Why shouldn't I? Evan looked up. Because I can change. I didn't realize how blind I've been. I thought I knew what success looked like. I thought I knew what wealth looked like. I thought I knew what respect looked like. But I didn't, not really. Naomi watched him closely. There was something different in his tone now. Not defense, not denial, but the tremor of realization. Robert rubbed his temples. Naomi, you mentioned culture. What exactly do you have in mind? She walked closer, stopping beside the desk. If you want to rebuild trust, start here. Not with a press statement, but with transformation. Evan frowned. Transformation? She looked at him. Yes, you're going to help build it, he blinked. Me? Robert raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Naomi set her phone on the desk and opened a document on the screen. A proposal. Benson & Cubber will partner with my firm to create an internal program. A complete reform of how you train your staff, hire your teams, and interact with customers. We'll call it the Dignity Project. Robert leaned forward. That sounds ambitious. It needs to be, Naomi said. This moment has already gone viral. If you do nothing, it'll define you. But if you act boldly, transparently, it can redefine you. Sophie spoke up. People are watching. They're angry, but they're also waiting to see if we'll do something right. Naomi nodded. Exactly. Anger can turn into trust if it's met with honesty. Robert folded his hands. And Evan? He'll lead the pilot program, Naomi said, as proof that understanding can replace ignorance. Let him work for what he almost destroyed. Evan stared at her. You'd really want me involved after what I did? Naomi's voice was calm. Because change means more when it comes from someone who's failed. You'll sit in every training. You'll listen to the people you misjudged. You'll rebuild what you broke. That's how growth works. Robert looked between them, then gave a small nod. If we do this, it won't be for the cameras. It'll be real, Naomi smiled faintly. Then we agree. The elevator chimed behind them. A member of the communications team stepped in, pale and breathless. Sir, we've received over 100,000 messages in 2 hours. Reporters are outside. CNN wants a statement. Robert nodded. Tell them they'll get one. He looked at Naomi. You'll help us draft it? Of course, she said. But words mean nothing if you don't follow through. Robert stood, extending his hand. Then let's follow through. Naomi shook it firmly. We start today. As she left the office, Evan rose slowly from his chair, feeling the weight of everything he'd done pressing down on his chest. He whispered, Thank you. Naomi paused at the elevator door. Don't thank me yet. Prove it. The doors closed, leaving Evan staring at his reflection in the polished glass. For the first time, he saw himself not as a salesman or a gatekeeper, but as a man standing at the edge of redemption, if he was brave enough to step into it. Outside, the crowd on Fifth Avenue had grown into hundreds. Cameras flashed as Naomi exited the building, her calm composure untouched by the chaos around her. Somewhere in the distance, Leah narrated to her live stream audience. She didn't just buy jewelry today. She bought a turning point. And deep inside the office above, Robert looked out over the city and said quietly to himself, Now the real work begins. 3 weeks later, sunlight poured through the tall windows of Benson & Co. The air inside felt different now, softer, lighter. The tension that once lingered in every corner had been replaced by something, new awareness, change. The store was opening. Early that morning for a special event, a ribbon stretched across the front entrance, framed by silver stands and fresh white roses. Reporters filled the sidewalk, cameras ready. The scandal that had shaken the brand was about to turn into its most powerful story. Evan stood behind the counter in a freshly pressed gray suit. His usual arrogance was gone. In its place was quiet focus. A small pin gleamed on his lapel, bias awareness advocate. He had earned it after more than 100 hours of training and community sessions. Naomi entered through the side door as composed as ever. She wore a soft beige coat, her hair pinned back neatly. The room stilled when she walked in. "Good morning," she said, offering a gentle smile. Evan nodded nervously. "Good morning, Dr. Carter." "You look different," she said. He exhaled. "I feel different." Naomi studied him for a moment. "Nervous?" "Terrified," he admitted with a shaky laugh, "but grateful." Sophie joined them, now promoted to store manager. "The media's already outside," she said. 15 outlets, including CNN, BBC, and local networks. They all want the same thing, your statement, Evan. He looked at the floor. "I've practiced it 100 times, but it still feels like the first." Naomi smiled slightly. "Good, that means it's real." Outside, the buzz grew louder. Robert Benson stepped to the front of the store, adjusting his tie. His silver hair caught the morning light. He looked both proud and weary, a man who had weathered a storm and chosen to build something better from the wreckage. He turned toward the crowd and began to speak. 3 weeks ago, Benson and Comer became the center of a national conversation about bias and discrimination. It was painful. But pain, he paused, can be a teacher if we let it. The crowd quieted. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned forward. "Today," he continued, "we're not hiding from our mistakes. We're learning from them. We've partnered with Dr. Naomi Carter to launch the Dignity Project, a program that ensures no customer, employee, or person is ever made to feel lesser in our stores again." Applause rose from the crowd. He gestured for Evan to step forward. The young man's hands shook slightly, but he took his place beside Robert and Naomi. "My name is Evan Brooks," he began. His voice trembled, but he didn't shy away. 3 weeks ago, I humiliated someone I didn't know. I made assumptions about Dr. Carter because of my own ignorance. I thought I knew what wealth looked like, what success looked like. I thought I could judge a person by what they wore or how they spoke. I was wrong. The crowd was silent. Even the clicking cameras paused. Evan continued, his tone stronger now. "In the last 3 weeks, I've learned that bias doesn't always look like hatred. Sometimes it looks like habit. It hides in the small things we think are normal, the words we choose, the thoughts we don't question. I can't undo what I did, but I can choose to be better every single day." A ripple of quiet approval spread through the crowd. Naomi stepped forward next. "Change doesn't happen because someone gets caught," she said. "It happens when we choose to understand. When we choose education over ego. This isn't about punishing mistakes, it's about preventing them." Her voice carried power, calm and clear. "That's why the Dignity Project will expand beyond this store. In the coming year, it will train 50,000 retail employees across 500 locations nationwide. We'll introduce community accountability boards, transparent progress reports, and open access to every result. Because the only thing stronger than reputation," she said, pausing just enough for the weight to land, "is integrity." The crowd erupted in applause. For the first time since that fateful day, Evan smiled, not with pride but relief. The sound of clapping didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like possibility. After the speeches, Robert, Naomi, Sophie, and Evan stepped inside as reporters shouted questions. One voice rose above the rest. "Dr. Carter, do you really believe people can change?" Naomi turned slightly, her eyes steady. "I believe people can learn, and learning changes everything." Inside the store, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. She handed it to Evan. "For you." He looked surprised. Inside was a silver pin shaped like a small flame, engraved with 2 words. "Keep learning." Evan blinked back emotion. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Naomi smiled softly. "I didn't change you, Evan. You did that yourself. I just gave you the chance." Outside, the ribbon was cut. The crowd cheered. The cameras flashed. And for the first time in years, Benson & Co. wasn't known for luxury. It was known for humanity. That night, headlines flooded the internet. Luxury brand turns scandal into social change. Employees' redemption story inspires thousands. The Dignity Project becomes national model for inclusion. But the story wasn't finished yet. 6 months later, something extraordinary would happen. Something that proved this moment had grown into a movement. 6 months later, Spring sunlight filtered through the same glass windows where judgment once lived. The store was alive with customers again. Couples laughing, friends trying on watches, quiet moments of delight echoing softly between the display cases. But beneath the familiar elegance, something deeper had changed. Evan stood near the main counter, greeting a family who had just walked in. He smiled easily now, not the rehearsed salesman's smile of the past, but one born from genuine warmth. The small silver flame pin still rested on his lapel, polished from daily wear. It had become a symbol not just for him, but for the company's new identity. Naomi entered the boutique quietly, unnoticed for a moment. She paused, watching the rhythm of the place, how the staff greeted every visitor with equal respect, how laughter filled corners that once held silence. She smiled to herself. Sophie spotted her first. "Dr. Carter," she said warmly, coming over to hug her. "Welcome back." Naomi returned the embrace. "It's good to see you, Sophie. The store looks beautiful." "Feels beautiful too," Sophie replied. "Sales are up 30% since the launch. And complaints? Practically gone." "That's the power of doing what's right," Naomi said. Evan turned and saw her. His eyes lit up. "Dr. Carter." He walked over quickly, his voice carrying a note of pride. "You're here just in time." "For what?" she asked. He gestured toward the large screen mounted on the wall. "The announcement." Robert Benson appeared moments later, stepping out of the elevator with a small team in tow. "Dr. Carter," he said, smiling as he shook her hand. "You've come a long way with us." "We came a long way together," she replied. Robert nodded. The National Retail Dignity Initiative officially passed its target. 48,000 workers trained, 500 stores participating, complaint rates down 70% nationwide. Applause broke out among the staff. Evan clapped too, but his eyes shimmered with something more than pride. Gratitude. Robert continued. "We've been invited to present the program at Harvard Business School next month. They're calling it a model for corporate reform." The room erupted again. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. Naomi stepped forward. This was never just about one store or one mistake. It was about proving that change is possible when accountability meets education. She looked at Evan. "And when people choose humility over pride?" He nodded slowly. "I still think about that day every time a customer walks in. It reminds me to pause before I assume, to listen before I speak, to see people before I judge them." "Then you've learned the most important lesson," Naomi said softly. Evan hesitated, then smiled. "Actually, there's one more thing I wanted to give you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box tied with a black ribbon. "I had this made for you." Naomi opened it carefully. Inside was a delicate bracelet, platinum engraved with a single word in tiny cursive letters. "Change." "It's from all of us," Evan said quietly. "For reminding us what change really looks like." Naomi fastened it around her wrist. "It's perfect," she said. "Not because of what it costs, but because of what it means." The store lights shimmered on the bracelet's surface like a silent echo of the panther piece she'd once tried to see. A symbol had been replaced by something real: humility, growth, respect. As the ceremony ended, reporters surrounded Robert, staff mingled, and the sound of laughter and chatter filled the air again. Naomi stepped aside, letting the celebration carry on without her for a moment. She looked out through the glass doors at the city beyond, the same city that had once watched her humiliation in real time. Now it was watching something else entirely. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "Saw the news. So proud of you." The bracelet from that store, it's still my favorite. Naomi smiled. She looked at the silver band on her wrist, then back at the people inside. Behind her, Evan greeted a new customer, a young woman wearing jeans and a backpack. He offered her the same warmth he would give anyone else. "Take your time," he said kindly. "Everything in here is meant to be looked at closely." Naomi watched the exchange, then turned toward the door. Before stepping out, she whispered to herself, "That's how the world changes. One moment, one person, one choice at a time." Outside, the sun caught the bracelet on her wrist, scattering light across the pavement. The reflection shimmered for a second, then faded into the rhythm of the city that was still learning, still changing, just like the people inside. And for the first time in a long time, Naomi Carter felt the rarest luxury of all, peace that had been earned.